Carlingford is a small town in the Cooley Peninsula that managed to preserve its medieval character. Hugh de Lacy, one of the most distinguished Anglo-Norman invaders, founded the town in the beginning of the 13th century. The settlement started when he decided to build a castle known as the King John's Castle at the outcrops of a rock facing the lough, this one right here. But what brings me here is food, oysters to be more precise. Maybe some other seafood too. It's not surprising that on a nation island like Ireland, seafood represents such an important role in the local diet. So beautiful, isn't it? People have been gathering oysters since the prehistoric times. The truth is that fossil traces prove that mankind has used oysters since as far back as the Neolithic age. Let's learn more. Evidence shows that Irish coastal populations ate large numbers of oysters which could be easily gathered. The Stone Age left behind fossilized oyster shells from many coastal civilizations. Oysters were a delicacy for the wealthy class during the Greek Empire. They were so important that their shells were even used to cast ballots in the voting process. Aphrodite, the goddess of beauty and love, emerged from the sea on an oyster. That could be the origin for the idea that oysters are aphrodisiacs. Oysters were still a part of the rich class diners in ancient Rome, so much so that they became scarce due to overharvesting. The Romans ended up transporting them from their conquered territories where oysters were plentiful, like England. The shortage of oysters persisted as they were highly perishable during transportation. They had to think of solutions, and Sergius Orata, a Roman inventor, is credited with being the first to lay out artificial oyster beds in Europe. During Middle Ages, there was very little in terms of recorded history. However, it's very likely that oysters kept being consumed throughout Europe. The thing is, the first reference to artificial stocking of oysters in Ireland seems to have been made in 1864 by Robert Leigh when he was writing about Wexford. Oh gosh, I'm tired. The 18th and 19th centuries were the golden age for oysters. New techniques created a surge in production everywhere. Oysters were now extremely affordable for the working classes of Europe and the USA. They were cheap and consequentially very popular at the tables of all classes. Carlingford became a very successful fishery since its first records of native oysters. In 1834, up to 2,000 people on hundreds of boats exploited the oyster beds. 40 years later, the natural beds were dredged out. The development of railways like the one behind me allowed seaside towns like Carlingford to increase the volume of oysters being dispatched throughout the country. To meet demand, oysters came from everywhere and anywhere. There was a real need to stop fishing over the summer months to allow beds to stay stocked so they could only be consumed during the colder months of winter. The R-month rule dictates that you can only eat raw oysters from the months that contain the letter R in their spelling, so from September until April. When water temperature rises in the summer, native oysters were produced. Also, back then, eating oysters from warm waters wasn't a good idea because of the risk of toxins and waterborne diseases. By the 20th century, the overharvesting of oysters in the US and Europe meant that it was difficult to maintain the oyster stock needed to meet demand. No native species were introduced to the beds to encourage the growth of oyster population. And this is when we start hearing about rock oysters or Pacific oysters. Rock oysters were introduced in the 70s in the Irish waters to remedy the decline on the native species of oysters. Nowadays, this type of oysters is the most eaten in the country. Rock oysters are traditionally found in Japan and Korea in the Pacific area. They are easier and faster to cultivate and deliver more meat content than the native oyster. This species is also more resistant to almost any nasty disease, and while the native oyster is seasonal, the rock oyster can be enjoyed all year round. Patrick's Bar and Restaurant, a little bit outside of Carlingford town, to try Carlingford oysters. There are many places in Carlingford where you can try Carlingford oysters, but I know as a matter of fact that you can try them here and that they are very fresh. It's a nice day, it's very windy and it's very noisy to cars, but I'm quite excited to try the oysters. Look at that. 6 fresh oysters and a glass, maybe a shot of Guinness. Now I'm gonna try those ones with a squeeze of lemon. Or maybe I put too much. Vinaigrette removes the saltiness of the oyster. It's very good. You can see that this is a rock oyster by the shape of the shell. It's a deep cupped shell if you look it sideways. And if you look from the top, you will see that it's white and elongated. The native oysters, they are flat and a little bit more round. Now, Carlingford oysters are famous for the barnacles that you see here. That's how most of the oysters, they have barnacles, but Carlingford ones, they come with more. That attaches to the shell, so it's easier to eat. A little bit of vinaigrette. So good. Worth the trip. And put Tabasco if you want. Slightly spicy, but still very good. You don't feel the flavor of the oyster so much if you add Tabasco, but it leaves a nice aftertaste. Kind of sweet actually. Very good. This is a seafood chowder, an Irish one. Usually comes with haddock, and I think this is mussels. There are carrots, leeks, oh, and some shrimps as well. Seafood chowder. Here, you can see. You can see a mussel. It's on. You can see a mussel. You can see a shrimp. There's leek. So basically, a seafood chowder is a cream soup with a seafood broth, and usually comes with haddock. Actually, don't know which fish this one has, but it seems to have a lot of seafood, which is good. So you may try. Very fishy. You can flavor the mussels mostly. Very creamy as well. It's great for cold days. Today is not very cold, but it's windy, so it helps. Cheers! Oh gosh, this place is so beautiful, it's so amazing, and there's no cloud in the sky, it's sunny, it's really a summer day. Perfect day to stop here and have some oysters. They were very good, they were very fresh. I could definitely taste the flavor of the Irish Sea, very salty, but a good flavor, a good aftertaste. Then the chowder was also very creamy, it was very rich, it was very generous in mussels and shrimp, so it was definitely a good idea to stop here and try the local food from the area. Now, apologies for the issues with the sound, I definitely need to buy a microphone, but I had fun here and I look forward to the next video. Bye!